Israeli airstrike hit central Gaza. Heavy explosion reported in Deir al-Balah. Israeli airstrikes target Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon, violating ceasefire. The United Kingdom warns of no military solution in Sudan, highlights 7 million at risk of famine. A new batch of wounded Gaza's residents has entered through the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing to receive medical treatment in the Egyptian hospitals. That came as ambulances transported the new batch of wounded Gaza residents towards Egyptian hospitals after Egypt's health ministry received them upon their arrival. At the same time, the fourth batch of Palestinians has begun moving from the Egyptian side of the Rafah crossing to re-enter Gaza. Earlier this morning, large numbers of returnees arrived in Gaza after receiving medical treatment in Egyptian hospitals since the crisis began on October the 2nd. Since the outbreak of the crisis, Egypt has received over 8,000 injured and sick Palestinians, providing care in more than 300 hospitals across 26 governorates. The returnees complete their official procedures for their journey back to Gaza. Egypt's health minister, Dr. Khaled Abdel Ghaffar, has received a new batch of wounded Gaza residents upon their arrival on the Egyptian side of the Rafah border crossing. That came after Dr. Abdel Ghaffar inspected medical preparations at the Rafah border crossing to ensure full readiness for receiving and treating injured Palestinians. He reaffirmed that Egypt continues to intensify humanitarian and medical assistance, with particular focus on providing advanced care and relief support for Gaza's children as part of ongoing efforts to address the worsening humanitarian situation. Dr. Abdullah Ghaffar stated that the ministry has provided approximately 18,000 vaccine doses, benefiting around 13,500 children. He also explained that the vaccinations were not limited to sick children, but also included those crossing with their families, ensuring health protection for all children under 12 years. He highlighted that Gaza has faced interruptions and irregularities in healthcare services, affecting vaccination rates, prompting intensified efforts to provide the essential vaccines and treatment. He also confirmed the provision of basic hygiene supplies and primary medical services for children and accompanying family members. Israeli occupation aircraft carried out a heavy airstrike targeting the city of Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. The strike targeted a vital area, and eyewitnesses reported hearing a mass explosion followed by sounds of ambulances rushing to the scene to check for casualties and transport those affected. The Egyptian Board of the World Health Organization approved maintaining the ongoing public health emergency in the occupied Palestinian territories, including East Jerusalem. The executive board condemned the repeated attacks on hospitals and medical personnel, describing them as a blatant violation of international humanitarian law and the Geneva Conventions. The resolution emphasized the need to open urgent and safe humanitarian corridors to deliver medicines, medical supplies, and fuel to ensure the free movement of ambulances and medical teams, and allow patients and the injured to receive treatment outside Gaza, totaling approximately 18,500 cases. Organizers of an international fleet of boats carrying humanitarian aid to Gaza announced plans to send another fleet of 100 boats in March. The fleet organizers, who coordinated a similar aid mission last year, described the upcoming mission as the largest civilian-led mobilization against Israeli measures in Gaza. They called on the international community to prevent Israeli forces from intercepting the operation. Manila, the grandson of late South African leader. And for more analysis, we now move on to my dear colleague Mona Msalhi in our newsroom. Mona?
Thank you so much, Rona. And for further analysis, we're joined from Cairo by Al Ahram managing editor, Mr. Mohammed Aizuddin. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews. And how do you view the Egyptian crucial efforts to treat Palestinians wounded coming from the Gaza Strip?
And thank you for having me here on Qnews. Definitely, Egypt has been playing such a huge role when it comes to sending humanitarian aid to the Palestinians, and has put in so much effort to open the Rafah crossing on both sides, and it has put even more effort to de-escalate tensions and to get Israel to commit and comply to the Trump peace plan and the Sharm el-Sheikh agreement. Today we had a convoy, the 132nd aid convoy to the Gaza Strip, and Egypt throughout the 2 years has been really keen to send humanitarian aid as much as possible, even though Israel has tried to block that, and Egypt has been trying to increase the number of trucks that enter the strip as well. But Egypt has started a new era of treating the injured and wants to keep up its role and to keep up the efforts by giving them the needed medical care in Egyptian hospitals, and to help them as much as possible, no matter the obstacles put by the occupation country.
Now, how significant was the tour that was conducted by Egyptian Minister of Health at Rafah crossing, and what does it reflect about Egypt's seeing that as crucial and important?
Yeah, there was the tour that the health minister had today, along with the North Sinai governor, and that was actually very important to show the government support alongside the civilians support, and to make sure that all the sectors are fully ready, and to prepare what's needed further to welcome and host the Palestinians and their companions, their family members, and to follow up on the cases that were treated in the Egyptian hospitals. And so this visit aims to make sure that there is maximum readiness, and that all the hospitals and sectors are fully ready to welcome our brothers and sisters coming from the Gaza Strip and to facilitate their entry along with their families as well. And then also when it has to when it has to do of returning the Palestinians in Egypt to go back from the Gaza Strip, they have facilitated that as well. And yeah, there is maximum readiness in a lot of Egyptian cities, especially cities like North Sinai and the neighboring cities, and the hospitals and all sectors. They are ready to host our brothers and sisters from the Palestinians, and they serve as a guarantee and some kind of reassurance for the Palestinians that they will be really taken care of here in Egypt.
On the other hand, what's your comment on Israel's ongoing violations of the ceasefire agreement in the Gaza Strip, and what does this reveal?
It is unfortunate, really, and we've talked about this a lot, actually. Israel needs to commit to the ceasefire, but instead they've been trying to manipulate the agreement and comply only to what serves them. They have been putting obstacles in the way of reconstruction in the Gaza Strip. They have been using pretexts like the detainee pretext, for example, and even after they were handed over the last detainee body, they are still stalling, and now they've been using other pretexts that have nothing to do with phase 2, and so Israel now has more than 55% of the Gaza Strip. And they have been trying to reform the strip a whole with to serve their goals and agenda in the Gaza Strip and to divide the strip according to what the far right extremist government sees fit. They haven't withdrawn from the land that they have taken over by force. And then the second thing here is that they have been putting obstacles and they have been stalling, but Egypt and all the mediators and the US have been putting pressure on Israel, and so we hopefully this will stop Israel from trying to stall and to halt its strikes on areas that has civilians.
Now, the international organizations have been calling for an urgent delivery for the humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. How important is that to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinians there?
Yeah, the humanitarian organizations and even the people, the civilians, we saw swift delivery. We've seen the civilians and the country's leaders calling for a complete halt for the Israeli strikes. And so yeah, as you know, Israel isn't just stalling humanitarian aid and reconstruction, but they are even blocking the international organizations from resuming their work in the Gaza Strip, like the UNRWA, for example.
Right. From Cairo, that was Mr. Mohammed Izzeddin, the Al Ahram managing editor. We thank you so much for joining us here on Qnews, and back to our colleague Rana Al-Assas in our studios. To you, Rana.
Thank you so much, Mona. And the Iraqi foreign minister has emphasized support for US-Iranian talks, stressing that removing the threat of war is a duty for all regional countries. At a joint press conference with his French counterpart, he warned that Destructing the agreement between the Syrian government and the SDF would undermine stability. Highlighting Iraq's close partnership with France, he welcomed ongoing military coordination and counter-terrorism efforts and praised the high level of security and military cooperation. He also affirmed Iraq's commitment to strengthening relations with Paris across political, economic and security sectors. The French foreign minister has emphasized France's support for Iraq in achieving security and stability in a turbulent region. Speaking in Baghdad, he highlighted backing for Iraq in confronting challenges, risks and obstacles, as well as strengthening national institutions to transform Iraq into a strong and resilient state. On broader regional issues, he affirmed support for efforts to enhance the rights of the Iranian people, called for Iranian concessions and nuclear negotiations with the United States, and underlined backing for a full and peaceful transition in Syria to restore normal life. Israeli aircraft carried out a series of airstrikes on Al-Mahmoudiyya in Jizin district and Wadi Barjaz in southern Lebanon. The Israeli occupation army announced that it targeted Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon, continuing violations of the ceasefire agreement in Lebanon. United Kingdom Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper affirmed that there is no military solution to the conflict in Sudan. She added that around 30 million people in Sudan are in need of assistance and 7 million are facing the risk of famine. The United Kingdom Foreign Secretary noted that London is seeking to dismantle the war machinery of those responsible for violence in Sudan through the sanctions it has imposed.
The Minister for the Middle East, at my instruction, has summoned...
The Syrian Chief of Staff, Major General Ali El-Nassan, has received the Russian Deputy Defense Minister in Damascus, along with the accompanying delegation. The Syrian Ministry of Defense has said the Russian delegation's visit will last several days and aims to develop and strengthen military cooperation in a way that serves the shared interests of both countries. Earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin has affirmed his country's support for the efforts of his Syrian counterpart, Ahmed al-Shara, to restore Syria's territorial unity. Putin also praised the Shara's efforts to ensure Syria's territorial integrity following the Syria's army's expansion of control over large areas in the north and east of the country. Iraq has welcomed the comprehensive ceasefire agreement between the Syrian government and the Syrian Democratic Forces, describing it as a positive step towards stability and a political settlement in Syria. In a statement, the Iraqi Foreign Ministry said the agreement reflects the importance of dialogue among all Syrian parties. Baghdad praised the role of Iraqi mediation efforts in helping pave the way for the deal and reaffirmed its support for Syria's unity, independence, and the Syrian people's aspirations for lasting peace. Russia has said that there is positive momentum in negotiations to end the conflict with Ukraine ahead of talks involving Moscow, Kyiv, and Washington and Abu Dhabi. Russian President Vladimir Putin's envoy Kirill Dmitriev has said progress is being made toward peace as delegations from Russia, Ukraine, and the United States prepare for discussions in Abu Dhabi. Dmitriev also accused European countries and Britain of attempting to disrupt the process, saying their interference has not slowed talks. He added that work is also underway to restore relations with the United States, including cooperation within a joint economic working group. The U.S. news site Axios reported that the United States and Russia are close to reaching an agreement to continue complying with the New START treaty. The site added, citing two sources, that the draft agreement on the New START treaty still requires approval from the U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ukraine says it carried out successful strikes on a Russian ballistic missile launch site in January. Ukraine General Staff has said the strikes targeted Kapustoniar test range near the Caspian Sea, damaging buildings used to prepare intermediate range and intercontinental ballistic missiles. It was also said one hangar was significantly damaged and some Russian personnel were evacuated without giving specific dates. Two people were injured after a Russian overnight drone attack struck Ukraine's capital, Kyiv. Kyiv mayor has said that the attack damaged residential buildings in one district, while drone debris fell on the roof of an office building in another, sparking a fire. Additional debris landed near a shopping center and windows were shattered at kindergarten elsewhere in the city. Emergency crews were deployed as authorities assessed the damage. Russia says its companies were forced to leave Venezuela amidst rising political and economic pressure following recent developments in the country. Speaking to media, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said Moscow is witnessing what he described as open pressure on Russian companies operating in Venezuela. Lavrov said Russian firms are being pushed out in the aftermath of recent events, warning of deliberate attempts to curb their presence. Russia has been a key ally of Venezuela in recent years, with major investments in energy, oil and mining sectors, especially amidst Western sanctions on Caracas.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear. If you look at that, or we're out.
U.S. President Donald Trump has stated that relations with Venezuela are currently excellent, despite the country facing a severe economic crisis despite its vast oil reserves. He criticized European countries for self-inflicted damage caused by migration and energy challenges. Trump noted that Iran is negotiating with the U.S. and does not want a strike while a large naval fleet approaches. He highlighted that the United States and Venezuela control 68% of the world's oil, emphasized America's unprecedented military strength, and asserted that Daesh has been completely eliminated in Nigeria. Berlin's airport has suspended all departures due to freezing rain and icy conditions, though incoming flights can still land safely. Authorities at Berlin's airport say no planes are taking off today because freezing rain has made it impossible to de-ice aircraft. The suspension currently affects departures only, with arrivals continuing as normal. Travelers are warned to expect cancellations and major delays, and German Weather Service has issued alerts about slippery roads and hazardous conditions across the city. Cuba has said it is open to meaningful talks with the United States, but will not discuss changing its government as tensions rise under President Donald Trump. Speaking to media, Cuba's Deputy Foreign Minister has said that while Havana is ready for dialogue, it will not negotiate its constitutional system. He added that both countries have exchanged messages at the highest government levels, but have yet to hold a formal bilateral discussion. The comments come as the Trump administration continues to increase pressure on Cuba, insisting on changes in the island's political system. Moving to the economic news, where the Central Bank of Egypt has announced that the country's net foreign currency reserves rose from $51,452 billion in December to $52.594 billion in January. Reports indicated the increase reflects improvements in foreign currency inflows from exports and remnants from Egyptian abroad. The rise in reserves also benefits from enhanced foreign exchange resources through both direct and indirect foreign investment flows. This growth underscores Egypt's ongoing efforts to strengthen its economic stability, support financial resilience, and attract international investment, ensuring sufficient foreign currency availability to meet the country's import and development needs. The European Central Bank has held interest rates at 2% for a fifth consecutive meeting, despite ongoing geopolitical tensions and a strengthening euro that may be cooling inflation faster than expected. The bank noted that the Eurozone economy remains resilient with low unemployment and solid private sector balance sheets. However, it warned that the broader outlook is still uncertain due to global trade policy risks and geopolitical pressures. U.S. President Donald Trump has highlighted economic challenges linked to geopolitical tensions during his National Prayer Breakfast remarks. He said Venezuela faces a major economic crisis despite its vast oil reserves, with instability affecting global oil markets and regional trade. Trump also warned that migration and energy issues are straining European economies, potentially slowing growth. On Iran, he noted ongoing negotiations with the United States and a large naval presence in the region, highlighting potential impacts on global energy markets. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin, but before we wrap up, here's a recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. Israeli airstrikes hit central Gaza, heavy explosion reported in Deir al-Balah. Israeli airstrikes target Hezbollah positions in southern Lebanon, violating ceasefire. United Kingdom warns of no military solution in Sudan, highlighting 7 million at risk of famine. For more stories and life updates, follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG. From all of us here, thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more news and analysis on QNews. And for now, this ends our transmission for today. Until we meet again at 4 p.m. Car local time tomorrow, it's goodbye from all the team here.